Hello and welcome. It's episode 11 of Road to Super Bowl, your summer preview for what is going to happen this year in NFL. And today, here we are with Atlanta Falcons. And we will start today with a bit of a monologue about this team and how they pissed me off last year and how it's still crippling them. And we, of course, are going to talk about Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix situation. And the narrative kind of shifted in this topic that Falcons fans are like, well, yes, at least we have Michael Penix. And I'm like, I'm not sure I'm in the same boat with you guys. Well, let's revisit. Last of season, they have signed Kirk Cousins to 4-year, $180 million extension, or contract, not extension. And within itself, I think that's a pretty fine move. You hire a defensive coach, you have quite enough talent on this roster to make a difference, to make a push, to win this division. Yeah, within itself, reasonable choice. Michael Penix drafted 8th overall. Within itself, reasonable choice. Again, you hired defensive-minded head coach. You are getting 24 or 25-year-old quarterback that should be ready to start. He should be ready. He spent a lot of time at college. So yeah, you're expecting him to have pretty nice floor. Within itself, reasonable moves. Combine them together, makes zero sense. Still, it makes zero sense to me. And the narrative kind of shifted around that because, let's say, the 10th percentile happened where Kirk Cousins kind of sucked and Michael Penix needed to start year one, and expectedly he was good. He was very promising. And that's like the 10th percentile of outcomes that could have happened. Obviously, Kirk could have played better. Some of these guys could have get injured. Michael Penix could have not looked good. They might have not turned to Michael, whatever. Let's say there was 10% chance that this is going to happen. And like last year, I said, the worst guy out of this, in terms of outcome, is kind of Michael Penix, because even in this unlikely events that actually happened last year, this is still not a great situation that he's entering, because this team is still hugely hampered by the Kirk Cousins contract. He's going to be $45 million sitting on the bench that you cannot spend elsewhere. That sucks, especially for a team that, has a lot of pieces paid, deservedly paid, but they don't have necessarily a huge amount of young talent on this roster because they drafted well in terms of Jake London and Bijan Robinson, but that's kind of it in the last couple of years. I mean, their huge investment in Kyle Pitts did not work out. Matthew Bergeron is okay, but not necessarily overplaying his rookie contract in terms of where he was drafted. And with other guys, show me where there is necessarily so much hope. So they don't have a cap flexibility for the duration of Michael Penix's rookie contract, where in theory you should get the most bucks for your money. They will be hampered by the Kirk Cousins contract. And not to top it off, I feel like if Raheem Morris does not make a playoffs with this team, he's gone. So there is a good chance that he's going to have a new head coach. And also within that process, it might be a situation for Michael Penix where, if he's just playing okay and Raheem Morris is kind of fighting for his job, could he turn back to the veteran and Kirk Cousins? That could also happen. So, even in a situation that's kind of the brightest for Michael Penix, that it could have happened because Kirk is a good mentor. I know it's just a TV show and they will, cherish especially the guy that came back in a quarterback series in Kirk Cousins. I still feel like he was mostly genuine and we did not see too much painting up and making him look better than he is. So I think he's a good mentor for Michael Penix. He's going to help him. But even in this situation, it's still far from effing ideal, especially where this team wanted to be. And I still can make a pretty solid argument that would I take this team with Kirk Cousins and Rome Odunze, who was drafted after Michael Penix. I think there is a case. I'm not sure, but I think there is a case. Would I take this team with Bo Nix over Michael Penix? Yeah, I think there's definitely a case for that. Would I take this team with Kirk Cousins and Brock Bowers over Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins? Hell yeah. Latu, I mean, obviously not with the investments you made in age group this year, but perhaps, you would change your draft strategy, so maybe. Then Jared Verse, hell yeah. Job Robinson, hell yeah. Quinyon Mitchell, hell yeah. Brian Thomas Jr., hell yeah. So there's still the fact that it's not that I would hate on Michael Penix, like in the portion of the video where we talk about quarterback. I think I'm excited about him, but it's the package of because you drafted him, you don't draft these other guys to pair with Kirk Cousins in what should be your window before you have to pay Drake London, before you have to pay Bijan. So yeah, overall, this decision, I think, I would say those decisions combined, because on within itself, I think it was fine decisions, but combined, hate it, and still I think it's a downfall for the Falcons. Well, with that out of my chest, out of my mind, hopefully we don't come back to this too often during this video, because I don't want this to be just a rant about a mistake that happened in the past. Let's talk and see where this Falcons team is heading into 2025 season. And we will start with how they did in terms of a draft. And they were aggressive. I give them that. They were clearly like, okay, so last year we thought we were missing a quarterback, so we signed one and we drafted one. And we thought we will figure out the defensive line with second round and third round talent. It did not happen. They did not have pass rush. Their defensive line was laughable. It was just not good. And when your defensive line cannot pressure the QB, it's much harder on your secondary, where even best safety in the league could look sometimes lost in Jesse Bates, or one of the best. So they were like, okay, we are not going to make that same mistake, and we will invest heavily in our edge. And they did that, drafting Jalen Walker and spending their first round next year by trading with the Rams to get James Pierce Jr. There were some other picks swapped around, so it's not like it was first from next year just for this. There were more picks in that deal that I would say in the end definitely favors Rams, but it's kind of like redoing this all-in thing, because this is a year that Falcons, they need to reach playoffs. For one, for the pick that they sent to Rams not have super high value, because if they somehow end up as a bottom 10 team, yeah, that we saw that with the Saints and the Eagles that landed them Jalen Carter. We obviously saw that with Panthers and Bears that landed Bears Caleb Williams. So you need that, but of course you need success. You've invested heavily into success now, and again, Drake London extension is around the corner, so you need to make playoffs. And for this, I do understand why you went for these guys. Would I necessarily took Jalen Walker with 15 overall pick? No, I think this was a little bit too high for him. He fits the need, so I understand it. But, if you kind of swap James Pierce with Jalen Walker, I would say that would be much more appropriate in terms of my rankings. But overall, these two guys, even though the price was pretty big, and I put it minor in the ranking, it's similar to Kirk signing. It makes sense within the window where you at, and it's really pushing your chips in the middle of the table. And unlike last year, they did not necessarily do anything that would contradict that. For example, trading Kyle Pitts, that's not as high as drafting Michael Penix, but that could have been one of the things that could have been on their mind this offseason, but they did not do that. So overall, pretty good picks. Price was too much for me. I feel like if they drafted James Pierce first, they might not get Jalen Walker because like for a lot of people he was higher on their radar. So overall it worked out for them. They have two nice edge pieces that with them you just hope that this D-line can generate pass rush. Can they? We will see in the later part of the video. Then Xavier Watts, one of my favorite picks. To me, he was a second-round talent, and I like, anywhere post 40, I would be absolutely okay with him being taken. So getting him almost 100 when he immediately feels the need, whether it's in free safety packages or actually as a starter to Jessie Bates. As of right now, I think he can definitely fight for that spot. He's not listed as a starter over experienced Jordan Fuller, but I have no doubt that he's going to play a lot this season. I would be very surprised that in case he's not injured, he's not going to play at least like 500 or 600 snaps. This was a huge value, and he's ready to play in my eyes. So yeah, I very rarely put a decent starter on someone this late in the draft, when this is not a like wide receiver / running back position, which are like one of the easier to transcend from college to the pros. I think safety is not an easy position to transcend. It's not the hardest, but I really am super high on Xavier Watts. So I love this pick. I really do. In terms of what they did next in the draft, they didn't have that many picks left, only two. Billy Bowman, I think, is a very solid pick. There was minor knock. I feel like there were still better safeties on the board, but again, this totally makes sense for them, because when you look at the roster, well, we don't have a high-end edge. Let's go and find one. We don't necessarily have a nice number 2 next to Jessie Bates in terms of safety. Let's find one. And what's better to find that than double down on those positions. With edge, you have to kind of go sooner for those guys to have much higher chances of success rate. With safeties, you can definitely find starting safeties late in the draft, and especially this year, this was some prime safety type of draft. So very happy actually how they handled the draft, beside the part that like Jalen Walker was way too early for me, and the price to pay to get James Pierce is going to cripple them in the future, at least in how I actually predict this team going to finish. But from their mind, here the vision is clear. Like, there is a coherent plan, and for that I applaud. Jack Nelson, kind of whatever pick. Could you like taken someone better than that? I would say like some wide receivers were still on the board. That could be nice depth for this team. Also, like some better O-linemen were still on the board in my eyes, especially in terms of developmental. But yeah, like whatever, it's 7th-round pick. Doesn't necessarily matter that much. Overall, their draft made sense. It had one of my favorite picks, I would say top 5 in Xavier Watts. And overall, I think they can be happy with clear plan and clear ideas what they want to do. Now, where does this leave their roster? We already talked that this team did not have too much money to spend in free agency, because Kirk Cousins deal, and they do pay their starters a lot of money, and like deservedly so. Like Chris Lidstrom deserves to be paid as one of the highest paid guards. GMaty-NFL deserves to be paid pretty nice chunk of money as a franchise tackle. The same goes for Caleb McGarry. So yeah, this time is ready for someone to take them to the greatness. Will it be the season? Well, let's find out with this offensive line. This is one of the best offensive lines in football in terms of helping this team run the goddamn ball. There is no better guard to do that than Chris Lidstrom. And overall, I think this line is like very solid. I would say probably average in terms of pass protection, and excellent in terms of run blocking. This could take a little bit of a dip with letting go of Drew Dalman, who I was pretty huge fan, and I think he's going to be missed, though I again understand the decision that you just didn't have money to prolong him. And when Ryan Nutsil actually played last year, he was looking solid. Is he necessarily great? No, but can he be a starting center in this scheme where you have Chris Lindstrom and Matthew Bergeron that keeps getting better next to this guy and be absolutely okay with that? I think so. So yeah, it's reasonable to save your money here. You know, if you didn't have Kirk Cousins, I think you still have Drew Roman. So, you know, Michael Penix and Drew Roman and another 30 millions. Yeah. Okay, I will count. That's one rant. All right, what's there to talk about this O-line? Okay, let's start with the tackles. I think those are both franchise tackles. They both are arriving there with age, and they are both like 15-ish, maybe slightly less than that in terms of where I would rank them. Like in their respective roles as right tackle and left tackle. We talk about this a lot. Like there is so much competition in terms of left tackle. So even though I think Jake Matthews is overall better player than Caleb McGarry in terms of where he's ranked in the left tackles market, I think it's going to be somewhere around that 15-16 average mark. And the same goes with Caleb McGarry and right tackle. Is that enough? Absolutely. Especially when you have, you know, played safe, top 3 guard in football, and Chris Lidstrom, who again, like, in terms of run blocking, yeah, in terms of pass protection, he's okay. Like, he's not special, but he's damn good. But his run blocking, it's just, wow, I mean, it must be so fun to run behind this guy. Next to that, you have Matthew Bergeron, who I think is kind of on a trajectory that you hope in terms of its good trajectory, like he keeps improving and he's paying up his second round pedigree. Is he necessarily overachieving like Superbowl? No, I think he's overachieving because it's still tough ask to be very good guard as a second rounder in this league. Like it's a tough position. But is he like, you know, ascending to be one of the league's greats? Not necessarily think so. Can he be, you know, top 10 left guard within his rookie deal? Yeah, hell yeah. And I think you are absolutely happy with that. And with Ryan, we talk about him. Solid player. I think there is a coach in his family. So, like, there is this mentality and you can see it. Like, he took his opportunity and he played his heart out. That also, to me, kind of shows that like the physical limitation that he has, it's not going to be enough for him to ascend towards more than decent starter in the future. At the same time, you know, if your worst player on your offensive line is a decent starter as a center and a guy that you know he's going to put his heart out anytime, he's going to listen, I mean, that's absolutely effing okay. You know, especially like in a cap salary situation, you need to save some money somewhere. And I would not be surprised if Ryan Utzil is going to be here for a long time on like some, you know, 5 to 7 million a year type of deal that just he's going to play towards to. So overall, this is pretty exciting offensive line and should allow this team to do what they want to do the most, and that's run the ball with Bijan. We'll talk about that after. Where for years this offensive line is scaring me, it's the depth, and it's not different this year because there is Storm Norton, who I guess in a pinch you can live with as your starter for a couple of weeks, and that's pretty much it. Like Elijah Wilkinson, Joa Gwynn, Kyle Hinton, Brandon Parker. Where is the depth, man? And I get it. Well, one, you don't really have the money, and two, this offensive line and one of its biggest strength, which like to me would actually put them probably as kind of like a top 5, top 7 offensive line in football. It's not just based on the talent that is really good here, but it's also their longevity and their like ability to play pretty much every single game. So that happened for a lot of these guys in the last couple of years, and that's pretty amazing. So, you know, if other team present to me as their depth, Storm Norton, and you know, you also like kind of hope that Ryan Utzil is actually going to work, I would be like, guys, I think we might have a problem here. I think for the Falcons, there is a reasonable belief that they could actually make it work. So really one of the groups that you should really look out if you see any injury reports, because they are not equipped to overcome them like almost at all. Now, Michael Penix. So I will start the narrative negatively because I guess Falcons fans would expect me to, so let's start it. Let's not pretend that there is only one way for Michael Penix to go, and that's up. Because we've seen young guys getting their opportunity late in the year, looking super excited, or like not even necessarily later in the year, like young guys, young quarterbacks, given the opportunity, first round or second round talents, looking very nice for 4 or 5 games, and we were excited about them heading into next year. And their situation is one has been replaced by the number 1 overall pick, and the other is probably going to be replaced by Daniel Jones. Just 1 year after we were actually quite excited about them. Yeah, I'm talking about Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. I mean, not many people will want to admit that, but we were excited about Will Levis entering last year because on dysfunctional team that was ready to fire their head coach, their things derailed with the Titans, that he didn't have too much support. There were some really exciting flashes with Will Levis in 2023 season. So yeah, we were excited about him last year. New coach, offensive minded. Yeah, this could work, right? And Anthony Richardson in 2023, like that couple of games that he played, boy oh boy, like there was so much excitement about Anthony Richardson entering last year. Here we are, 1 year later. And like I said, Daniel Jones probably started for Colts, and Cam Ward definitely started for the Titans. So, it can happen to Michael Penix. The other thing why I don't necessarily see the only way being up is, like I said, he was an older rookie coming in. There was a reasonable expectation that he would actually look good. And let's be honest, the situation that he entered was kind of very nice. Like, you have really good offensive line, you have really nice weapons, you have a mentor, you've been preparing for that role for like 14 weeks. So there was actually, like, unlike what Will Levis entered when it was like everything is falling apart, much different situation. So the fact that he looked good or great even should not be as much of a surprise, I would say. And then third negative part is, well, there is at least some film on him now. So, like, obviously there is a college film on him, but still, like, college and pros, that's different competition, of course. So the defensive coordinators will have something to work with towards next year, like towards preparing for the season. But at the same time, I was really, really happy with how he played. I feel like as much as I'm talking about the talent that he was surrounded with, that was pretty nice for him to enter, the situation was kind of bleak in terms of this team just lost division lead, they were on the downside, and Michael Penix gave them a breath of fresh air. And some of the things that he's done, they were exceptional. Like, I remember the one play where he kind of stumbled, still make it out towards the tight window. Like, he really played like he had nothing to lose, but also he's done this before. Like, he didn't look like a guy entering his first couple of games in the league. So I think there is definitely a situation, and we talk about Michael Penix as top 15 quarterback at the end of this year. Hell yeah. Do I think that he has a talent or athleticism to be one of the top dogs? No. For the tier 2, yeah, that's where I have questions, but he can definitely be a tier 3 guy as early as this year. And again, number 2, is that necessarily something you want to buy with 8 overall pick when you are trying to go all in? A guy that, if he reaches his upside, could be like 12th best quarterback in the league. Because I do question a little bit upside with Michael Penix in terms of, like, can he actually be top 7 guy? I'm not sure. So Should you feel good that you are not going to suck at QB? Yes. This is not going to be I really, really doubt that it's going to be 2023 and Desmond Ridder. I don't think that's going to happen. But there is definitely a world in which Michael Penix is not skyrocketing his rankings, in which he is just 25th best QB in the league, 20th best QB in the league. And that's pretty much what he is. With his age, there are some limitations in terms of his improvement. And also, there is, again, a world in which, this team starts to struggle and they might look at the situation and go we kind of need to save our job. We could perhaps turn to Kirk Cousins. I don't think that's out of mind of Raheem Morris. Because, there you can... Obviously, we have not been in the room, but, looking outside, the storyline of Kirk Cousins actually getting injured, it was his arm, shoulder at that Saints game, you can see clear down trajectory after that. It's not like before it was super special, but it was definitely good. And one more year removed from Achilles, then is there a world in which Kirk Cousins actually could offer them more than Michael Penix? Yes. Is it likely world? Hell no. But it's a world out there. So, okay, to me, I'm excited about Michael Penix. I'm also excited about overall this offense being in competent hand, which I don't doubt they will be, whether it's Michael Penix or Kirk Cousins. It's not going to be Desmond Ridder experience. I don't think there is too much of a down trajectory for Michael. But, saying that this is a slam dunk, it's going to happen, there is only way up, I disagree with that pretty harshly. Now, towards weapons and, beside offensive line, another thing that absolutely works in Michael Penix's favor, because the identity of this team is going to be run the ball and run it more and even more after that, because Bijan is effing awesome. In a year where Saquon was breaking records and leading Eagles towards the Super Bowl, I feel like Bijan's season was kind of lost in translation, but he was absolutely a stud. Definitely arrived as elite player, and to be safe, he's top 5 running back. I would have him as probably my number 3 for right now, and he's just amazing. Behind him, you have Tyler Algier, who I feel bad and I feel good for. I feel bad in terms of they replaced him with Bijan, a special talent that was rookie, you were excellent. Now we are drafting Bijan, so you are going to take a second chair here. But I feel good for him because, his body is not actually going to be wear and tear after he finishes his rookie deal. He looks every time pretty nasty out there because the defense is, they perhaps think this is a time when we could pause because it's no Bijan, but Tyler is going to make you pay. And also, they are much less, in terms of energy, there is a lot of energy you need to expend to stop Bijan Robinson. So Tyler is definitely a guy that takes advantage of that. So I would not be shocked if there is a world out there where he gets a really nice contract after his rookie deal finishes. There is also a world in which, this league is just too full with excellent running backs that even Tyler, who I think could be an absolutely average starter, is not necessarily viewed as such and paid as such after rookie deals and stops. But I think he could be a very sneaky nice signing for two things. I think he's damn good, and B, I think he is actually having 1.5 season under his belt in terms of NFL wear and tear, entering his second deal in NFL, which is pretty good for a guy with his quality and his potential. Now, beside running the ball, and there is really not anyone pretty much that I like behind these two guys, let's talk about who they can pass to. And they can, of course, pass to Bijan and Tyler, but in terms of wide receivers and tight ends. So Drake London, absolutely a guy that, he was a pick that was criticized at the point of the draft, but he proved pretty much everyone wrong. I feel like he is a top 10 wide receiver as of right now. I would have him there. top 15 to be absolutely safe. And I think there is a chance for him to ascend towards eliteness. Is it more than 50%? I wouldn't actually say so, but can he be your number one for years to come that you pay 30 plus millions a year and you are absolutely happy with? Yep. Behind him, Darnell Mooney, for as much as I criticize this front office, this was clear vision, excellent reading of the market and an excellent reading of the player situation, because Darnell Mooney was good, then Justin Fields arrived. He became number 2 target after DJ Moore. Justin Fields does not look at his number 2 targets, and Darnell Mooney, despite being open and actually playing well, he just did not receive the ball. Well, here there were quarterbacks that were able to look at Darnell Mooney, and it was almost 1,000 yards. And he is paid, let me check on that one. 3 years, 39 million. So getting number 2 wide receiver of his quality for 13 million a year, not only for this, but for next season, that's hell of a steal. Love this combo. Is it the best in the league? No, but it's definitely average in league that's full with superstar weapons. And you combine it with superstars that you have as your running backs, and you are talking. Now, with this offense, this is a clear topic. There is almost no depth to speak of, because your wide receiver / tight end 3 is probably Kyle Pitts, but I'm kind of done with Kyle, hoping that he's going to ascend to greatness. I think he is a nice number 3 weapon, and that's it. And also in terms of making or being an actual tight end, in terms of adding anything towards your running game, he is lacking in that. So to me, you want him out there in sort of a 12 personnel when you have actually a guy that can block in Charlie Warner out. But in 13 personnel, I think he's a liability for your running game. And could he be just a signal for the offenses that you are ready to pass? I think so. So at this point, I'm done with him. Can he reenact his rookie year? But I'm not done with Kyle Pitts and idea of him as a player, because as much as he perhaps disappointed us with not reaching his full potential, he's still a nice player. He's still a good starter that can be a very nice weapon. Hopefully, more time removed from his injury in 2023. There could be some more juice back, but do I believe that he is going to be this excellent weapon that they drafted him number 4 overall for? No. And I really am wondering what's going to be market for Kyle Pitts after his rookie deal expires. Then, in terms of your number 3 guy, you have Ray McLeod, who had pretty nice season last year. The thing is, as your number 3 guy, again, that's pretty solid. But I feel like if you go in 13 personnel and you put Kyle Pitts out there, you are hampering your run game kind of way too much, because he's kind of bad in terms of blocking. So is it too much of a signal? I don't know, maybe. And if you go in 12 personnel, Ray stays on the bench. So I wonder. And there is no one behind this. There's these are the 6 guys. Then there's Charlie Warner, who's a blocking specialist that can do some things in terms of catches. But beside that, I have zero trust in any backups for this weaponry, and that's a bit of a problem, because if Drake London goes down, I don't know how he fixed that. This offense suddenly could be just 12 personnel heavy, and you stack up the box against him, and this is going to be a dogfight. The good thing is you have O-line to take up on the dogfights, but yeah, that's pretty bad. You lose, even Darnell Mooney is actually quite a loss. Even Ray McLeod is quite a loss, because I don't trust anything that's behind this. In terms of running backs, it's kind of Carlos Washington and Elijah Dotson. Tell me if you heard about them. In terms of wide receivers, Kadel Hodge, DJ Chark, Casey Washington, Jamal Agnew. I don't want to see those guys out there too much. And, in terms of tight ends, it's Felipe Franks or Tigan Quittoriano. yeah, the storyline for this offense is they need to stay healthy. Like offensive line, offensive weaponry, running backs. If everybody stays healthy, the idea of this offense is absolutely functional. If Michael-Penix goes up arrow, yeah, we could be talking about offense that could sniff top 10, like for sure. With this running game, these weapons, and Michael-Penix going up, and this O-line, I have no problem saying that. But that's really based on Michael-Penix needs to go up, guys needs to stay healthy. And like you might say, well, that's kind of the case for every team. Yes and no. Like obviously, your best roster out there makes a difference, but some teams are equipped to handle losing one or even two guys. I don't think this team is equipped to handle pretty much anyone. Like, one of, let's say, 7 guys, Bijan, Drake, Darnell, Chris, Jake, Caleb, or even Matthew Bergeron goes down, I think we talk about significant drop-off in terms of productivity. Obviously, it's going to differ based on who is going down, but like even the fact that one of the 7 guys can go down and you see a drop-off that is not marginal, it's scary. We'll see if they will be able to stay healthy as they did last year. Like, this offense was totally healthy, so there is a reason to believe it can stay that way. That being said, let's take a look at what this defense has to offer. Like I said, in terms of backups for this offense, there is really not much to say. Well, let's spend like a minute on Kirk Cousins. I mean, I like Kirk as a person. Like, I think he actually slightly reminds me of myself, kind of a family. Like, if I was an NFL quarterback, I wish I would be like similar to Kirk in the area of like having stable family, having a loving wife, having kids, and really like enjoying this part of being an NFL star. Just having this really nice settlement around me, this really nice base for me functioning, family home and everything. Like, I imagine I would want to be like that in this area. So like he is like, there is a natural like connection or like affection in a way for like how he lives or how he like is with the fame and the money he has. In terms of performance on the field, like there were a lot of interesting stuff. Like the 2 games against Bucks, they were exceptional. Like he still was, like his numbers in terms of like how much yards he got in shortened season, it's still pretty damn impressive. Problem was like that 5-game stretch or 4-game stretch that he had to finish his year, that was brutal. So if there is, I would say 80+% like true to what was told in quarterback, when it was like really he was still recovering from his Achilles. It was fine, but not like you are not 100% a year after. And when you add some minor injuries, it kind of affected him totally. So if there is a case, there still might be something left in Kirk Cousins, and I hope it is. Will we see it? We will see. With that being said, let's shift towards the defense. And this defensive line is absolute opposite towards what they have in terms of offense, because it's deep. Like you are like 9 deep. You have, I would say, 9 guys that can play, or maybe even more. So let's just count it. Morgan Fox, Zach Harrison, Rook Ororo, Kentavious Street, David Onyemata, Brandon Dorlus, James Pierce, Leonard Floyd, Arnold Ebitike, Jalen Walker, Ben Just. That's 11 names that you drafted in the last 2 years pretty much, or they are veterans that should be able to play. A lot of bodies. No high-end talent to talk whatsoever. Like, I think the best player here is David Onyemata, and on, I would say, even great teams, or like on top 10 defensive lines, he would be like your number 3, even perhaps number 4 option. Here, he's the best. That's a problem. Morgan Fox, I really like the signing. He's a veteran guy that should help give some floor towards this defensive line and help these young guys to develop. And in time, you hope guys will outplay him of the perhaps starting position that he might have as of right now. But overall, you've invested heavily in this defensive line in last 2 or 3 years in terms of draft, and it's all about can it hit. Last year, Rucororo, Brandon Dorlus, Brian Trice, no hits whatsoever. Arnold Ebiketie, who you drafted like 3 years ago to be his kind of your best edge player, and even there, like, I question whether I should keep him as a good starter because like it's on the edge with just a decent guy. Like week 1, this is probably the worst defensive line in football or one of the worst. What it's going to be week 8? That's the question that could absolutely decide future of the coaching staff and Falcon season. The thing is, unlike for the offense, they are well equipped to handle injuries, but that's partially because there is no high-end talent to speak of, but also like they really go 11 deep. So they will need to figure it out, and I feel like this is going to be a part of the team that is going to decide, beside the actual results, but decide what's Raheem Morris' future going to look like, because you have been hired as a defensive-minded head coach. You have this defense under your vision, and we invested heavily in the defensive line. We need for this part of the team to start working. If it doesn't work, if out of these 11 names we talk, you cannot create 20th best D-line at least by the end of this year, I think it's going to be bye-bye unless you make playoffs. They still could fire him if he doesn't make playoffs and this D-line is actually functioning. But you get my idea. Like, beside that, I would say actual results, 80%. How this D-line is performing, 20% of how this team is going to review Raheem Morris. And of course, like, let's put 5% on culture and stuff like that. But overall, this is going to be kind of make or break this team. And I would say even Raheem Morris's chair for years to come. What do I feel? How do I think about these guys? Like, I like the potential. And I will leave it at that. Like, in theory, the upside should be, they can handle the run, they can rush the passer. When it's going to happen, I don't know. As of right now, it's pretty mediocre in both phases. And that's super hard to stomach when you have, I would say, still such a clear weakness. Because like these guys need to prove it, and with Falcons there has not been a good track record of actually developing this young talent. Well, barring this is the first time in the last couple of years that they actually invested in the first round. So fingers crossed for them that it's going to be different. In terms of linebackers, I think this is a group that is not going to break your season. It's not going to make your season. I think this is absolutely a group that you are okay with. In modern NFL, I like Caden Ellis. He's a really nice blitz threat. He's like a speedy guy that you can dial up some blitz packages for. And overall, like in terms of coverage and how he handles this position, he's still pretty good. As your number 1 linebacker, you can absolutely live in that. Divine Diablo, he came here to be solid number 2. I think he is that. Do I necessarily expect him to be something more than that? Not really. You can also think about Jalen Walker as part of this linebacker room. Probably mostly as kind of a blitz threat, but maybe they have some other ways how they could utilize him. And other backup is like Troy Anderson, whom they I think drafted last year as well. Solid developmental piece, but overall this should not be a unit that you are scared about. It's also not a unit that you are excited about, but you are fine with that if that's your linebacker room. Now, towards secondary, that's actually like one more point about this defensive line. Like, even though I say they are like very mediocre at both phases, I would say still in terms of run defense, it's even worse. And like one guy that you cannot lose, I think, is David Onyemata, because I think without him, stopping the run could be Dallas-esque worth or even worse for this defensive line. Like these young guys, they are here to generate heat on the quarterback. They are not necessarily excellent in terms of run defense, though like James Pierce can do it but from the edge, it's not as valuable. In the middle, Morgan Fox is definitely not a great run stopper. Like he's a lighter guy, he's much more of a penetrator, so you cannot lose David Onyemata. Otherwise, they need him healthy. Now, towards the secondary, exciting unit, not necessarily a super one. So you have one superstar in each position, in Jessie Bates, in AJ Terrell. Jessie Bates, comfortably top free safety in the league. Nothing more to say. Like he is glue that I would say for years have held this defense together, because like them not having really nice pass rush is not a topic for only 2024. It's been a topic for several years. And you need a guy like Jessie Bates out there kind of like navigating the secondary, so they don't give up. Like it's hard to be a member of a secondary where your defensive line cannot generate pressure, because covering a guy for 2 seconds, possible. For 2.5, it's a huge difference. For 3 seconds, nearly fucking impossible. So I think like a lot needs to be said about Jessie Bates' leadership, as well as just his amazing play on the field. In terms of AJ Terrell, like he's been a guy that had this one all-star season where he like looked like Pat Surtain or Sauce Gardner, but in the other years he just kind of looks like a great number one, but not a special. So to me, he's an amazing starter. You are happy to have him, but do I ever see him ascend to eliteness? Do I ever see him kind of repeat that season? I don't really think so, but you take AJ Terrell as your number one kind of any day of the week. With other guys, I think in Mike Hughes and Andy Alford, you have solid enough pieces around AJ Terrell and Jessie Bates that it's absolutely functional. I like that you brought Mike Hughes back. For this amount of money, you are getting a starting corner in the league that, one day you hope you can get better, but when you are strapped for cash, when you are strapped for resources, even in terms of draft, where it was like kind of clear what you want to do, I love this resigning. So yeah, is it a special group of corners? No. Is it functional? Yes. Does it have high-end talent? Yes. Mark, check, good. Next to Jessie Bates, for now, Jordan Fuller is listed as a starter, and again, I like the signing. Like he is a solid enough player that for 1.2 million, you take that next to Jessie Bates, but you have this upside of Xavier Watts. He's also a guy that could be playing in some free safety packages, so yeah, very, very nice. You really help yourself so much with this third round addition. It's like, yeah, that's why it was one of my favorite picks, because not only he makes sense as definitely an option next to Jessie Bates after Jordan Fuller leaves after this year. Even he definitely makes sense in a guy that could just say that I'll play him this season, and he is a guy that you can use in some packages that could have both Jessie Bates, Jordan Fuller on the field at the same time as Xavier Watts. So totally makes sense. Absolutely love it. Beside this, in terms of backups, I think you are solid. I think Clark Phillips is pretty good number 4 that is going to be fighting with Mike Hughes for that spot. If anybody goes down, if anybody underperforms, you have a solid guy you can lean into. In terms of DeMarco Hillams, again, pretty solid backup for safety. The same goes for Troy Anderson. So, yeah, like this is kind of a night and day. When we talk about the offense, you have so much high-end talent, but really no depth to speak. In terms of defense, you really have one elite player, one really, really, really good one, and so much depth. So I would say Raheem Morris, he needs to figure out the way in which this defense is at least average, because there is so many players to pick from. He needs to start making this defense his own and really good. Like, is this the defense that has high-end talent to be top 10? No, But when you are hiring defensive-minded head coach, his job is to outperform defensive rankings of your team based on down the paper for at least like 5 to 8 spots. That's a bare minimum that you need to accept from this defensive-minded head coach. Otherwise, that hiring is just not going to work. Like, he needs to be Mike Vrabel, like 90% or 80% of like Mike Tomlin's, Mike Vrabel's, or he needs to be this young ascending guy in like Mike McDonald, or Jesse Mentor, who I think he's going to get the job next year. Like, he needs to be a guy that's going to like reinvent the wheel in a way and really like suit up these young guys that, you know, they're just going to play much better than they should in a way. So Raheem, now you got your pieces, you got your investments. This draft was pretty much entirely on the defense. You sacrificed future resources. You had 1 year. It's time. It's time, man. Can they do it? I don't know. Let's figure out how I think about them in terms of schedule. And I have one bold prediction, and that is that Raheem Morris could be the first coach actually fired this year, because the start for them on paper does not should not scare you when your ambition should be like winning division with all the investments. But can I imagine them going 0-4? Yes, because at home you have Bucks and Washington. You are not heavy favorite in either of these games. I would say, you know, it's probably a flip in both. So if it's a flip, you can definitely lose it. At Vikings, that's a nasty one game. Like, of course, JJ McCarthy could suck, but it's still 14-win team that improved in every area beside the QB. And, you know, some part of me believes that Kevin O'Connell, 1 year with JJ McCarthy, just listening to him, learning the playbook, and Justin Jefferson, and much better in improved offensive line, I just have a feeling that he's not going to suck. So that's a real tough game. And Panthers, again, on the road, like, it's a hard game. Like, I'm not saying they have to lose it, but yeah, they can. And like, there's definitely a world in which they go 0-4, and then you enter a bye week looking at Bills, and you're like, well, this did not work. We could get rid of Raheem Morris. I don't wish it to him. I think he deserved his shot last year, but, you know, he's still kind of bottom end tier coach for me. And unless, you know, he makes this defense work at least solidly, like, this could be it. Like, this could really be it. At the end of the day, I think they will go 1-4, which means, because I definitely predict them to lose at the Bills Week 6, that they will win one of these 4 games, and they will keep him for the stretch. He's going to survive this. But, like, you know, I would not be shocked if after like entering bye week, they would be like, nope, this is not working. Can it be absolutely the reverse? Can they go 3-1? Yeah, hell yeah. So this is just like, you know, me trying to predict future. So like, how much do you bite into that? That's up to you. Second part of the year, to me, this is going to be where Bijan is going to shine. Whether it's bad start, we just need to really get back to basics, and basics for this team is Bijan. Whether it's run defense for those teams that they're going to face is nothing special. You know, like, I would say the Colts have probably the best one out of those teams, and they still have a problem with like Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner both being healthy at the same time. So that's that. And I feel like, Panthers have a pretty solid run defense because of Bobby Brown, but, you know, is he going to be there? And they also have them at home. So, you know, if there is a 1,000-yard stretch for a running back, I would probably say it has to cover also catch yards, because like running for 170 every week, it's even tough stretch for Bijan. I think that could be it for the Bijan. And like, that would put them at 5-6, and, you know, with still some hope for the playoffs. And then here comes the test from West. What I'm talking about, NFC West, Rams, Cardinals, and Seahawks. Beside that, you have Jets, you have Bucks, and you have Saints. I think they are going to split these games. I feel like this is reasonable schedule. but not necessarily one that you should feast upon. So overall, I think this team is going to finish 8-9, and I'm not like super excited about their future. Of course, there is so much that can go better than this, but with this exercise, you try to predict injuries, you try to predict development from the guys, you try to predict like the internal turmoil, which definitely the things could spiral if they start poorly. And overall, I think there are just way too many better teams that Falcons are right now, and that too many things needs to go right for them to actually be a playoff team. Do I put a hurdle that they cannot jump across or over? No, I think like I will not be shocked if they are playoff teams. I would be shocked if Saints are a playoff team forever, for example. But like, am I kind of done believing that this team is going to get over that hump, which that hump is like for them is actually winning this division, I guess, in this window with Bijan, with Drake? I feel like they've made too many mistakes in the past that they are still going to haunt them, and this year is just not going to be theirs. Let me know what you think, guys. If you survived here, if you enjoyed this, please leave a like, leave a comment, very much appreciated, and see you with a wraparound episode that's going to be, of course, with Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bye bye, see you next time.